In the land of Great Britain lies many legends, one of the most famous ones being the tale of King Arthur. This heroic being accomplished many great feats, forever marking her memory in the minds of people for years to come. Many years have passed on, and yet there remains a devoted clan of people that reside in a small village on the countryside of Britain, dedicated to reviving her to this very day. In this village lives a 15-year-old girl that goes by the name of Gray, who helps attend the graves of the village under the mentorship of Gravekeeper Bersac Blackmore. When Gray was born, her facial features vaguely resembled that of King Arthur. The villagers used magic to further alter Gray's body to be identical to King Arthur's, to the point where the villagers and even her own mother, Magdalena, believed her to be the second coming of the true king. This drove Gray to hate her own face, as she felt it wasn't who she really was, and she did not like the way the villagers were treating her. The villagers eventually decided that they would perform a ritual to the gods to summon King Arthur's soul, and infuse it into the body of Gray, which will consequently cause her own soul to be lost forever. News of this has spread to the clock tower, where Lord El-Melloi II decides to visit the village to investigate. Upon his arrival to the village, he eventually meets Gray. El-Melloi's initial reaction on seeing her face was that of sheer terror, as he was reminded of the painful memories he experienced during his time at the Fourth Holy Grail War, more specifically his encounters with Saber. Gray wearing a hood at all times did make it easier to interact with Melloi, but he still refused to have direct eye contact with her. But over time, things will eventually improve. They were able to somewhat gain each other's trust later on, after the events that conspired in the village. After some contemplation, El-Melloi decided that he needed to change for the better, and thus made an offer to Gray. The offer would be that he would make her his apprentice and enroll her at the clock tower in London. He admits that he won't guarantee her a future or compensation that would satisfy her. It was rather more likely that she'll be put in danger and end up risking her own life to protect him. Despite being told the harsh truth, Gray was swayed into accepting his offer. She saw that he was carrying a heavy burden and was in a lot of pain, just like herself. She figured it would be better to be around with someone who is trying to change themselves. In her mind, she thinks, if you will worry with me, if you will suffer with me, if you will get hurt with me, then it will be alright. With these thoughts, she believes that this man's guidance will truly help her. Before accepting his offer, she makes one last request, that he would continue hating her face, which somewhat took him by surprise. He then agrees and promises to do so. Thus begins the relationship of apprentice and master. After some negotiations with the village, Gray is able to live her new life in London at the clock tower to learn the ways of the mages. Her interactions with the other students tended to be awkward, and she admits that she isn't as smart of a person when comparing herself to others. Such is the life of a country bumpkin adjusting to life in the big city. She ends up going on multiple trips and investigations with Lord El-Melloi, solving many mysterious cases. Most of these cases usually end up having Gray enter combat with various anomalies. Since Gray is actually a descendant of King Arthur herself, she is able to wield the Holy Lance, Rongo Miniad. Shortly after King Arthur's death, the Holy Lance was hidden within the mystic code box named Ad, to preserve mystery so it doesn't lose its power over time, as it was passed down for generations in Gray's family line. She will only unleash this noble phantasm as a last resort in combat, since it consumes a massive amount of her energy. Her mystic code can also change into various weapons, but Gray's weapon of choice is the Grim Reaper Death God Scythe, which can consume spiritual body and magical energy. This weapon also converts that energy to give superhuman strength and agility to Gray, despite her just being a regular human. Another interesting fact about her mystic code box was that Ad's pseudo-personality was modeled after Kay, who was a member of the Knights of the Round Table and was also the foster brother of King Arthur. Ad somewhat became Grey's only friend during her time in the village, as it was the only thing she could talk to normally due to her strenuous relationship with the villagers. The curious little box often teases her, but ultimately it did always look out for her. As the time passes on and the 5th Holy Grail War comes near, Grey requested to accompany El-Melloi to keep him safe during that time, as she is aware of Melloi's obsession to reunite with Conqueror Iskander. Luckily for her, El-Melloi wasn't able to participate in the 5th Holy Grail War when the time came. After the events of the 5th Holy Grail War, she continues to be El-Melloi's apprentice at the Clock Tower for many years to come. This concludes the story of Grey the Gravekeeper. Thank you all for listening to this little story.